Yeet! Good wrestling morning, my mush puffs. Well, good wrestling, MMA, combat sports morning to all my mush puffs. All right. Had a little bit of technical difficulties. I don't know what happened. Just restarting seemed to fix everything. Looks like everything is going just fine now. How's everybody doing on this wonderful Thursday morning? October 25th, 2018. Man, the year is just flying by, ain't it? Good Lord, that's a lot of money. Just happening fast. Everything's going crazy. We are here. We are live despite the technical difficulties and despite some very, very early breaking news about WWE. We're going to get to that first because I think that's the most important thing that's happening at the moment. I'm definitely going to be talking about Conor and Khabib. Khabib, what the fuck ever. And the first real major trade in the MMA world, if you can call it that. We'll get to that in just a moment. Lots happening. But we really do got to start with WWE here. Okay, you just saw it. We're going to go ahead and put it up on screen again because this is crazy. I want to read this. Let me move my big fucking head out of the way. All right. WWE has operated in the Middle East for nearly 20 years and has developed a sizable and dedicated fan base. Considering the heinous crime committed at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, the company faced a very difficult decision as it relates to its events scheduled for November 2nd in Saudi Arabia. Similar to other U.S.-based companies who plan to continue operations in Saudi Arabia, the company has decided to uphold its contractual obligations to the General Ports Authority and stage the event. Full year 2018 guidance is predicted on the staging of the Riyadh event as scheduled. Oofa. Oh, wow. I'm in shock by this, especially considering more news has broke early this morning about Saudi Arabia. Now, I do want to make it known that that was from a conference call for WWE for their quarter financials. They told this to the entire goddamn investing board. Now, the question is, what is going to come just from, since it was a financial announcement, it was at the quarterly review that they announced this. Now, the question is, did they announce it because of the current drop in WWE pricing? 3 weeks ago, when all of this shit started, it was at $100 a share, damn near. Now, it's trending to get under $80. They've lost a good $20 off of the stock price. That's enough to make you pause and go, uh-oh. But why isn't WWE attributing to the fact that they have been so silent on the Saudi Arabia thing and have yet to speak out about it and still let everything remain like it was going forward? Maybe that's the reason why the stock is dipping, and not just because of the world is what it is. I don't know. I don't know which one's true. I'm not smart enough in the stock market to tell you. I don't know the trends well enough to tell you. I really simply don't know. But this all seems very crazy to me. It seems very counterintuitive. And the funny thing is, had I and anybody else just listened to JBL the other day when he went on Fox and talked financials like he does, this wouldn't be a surprise. The fact is, JBL still very much represents the WWE, and he is a WWE guy through and through. He's also one of the most important factors in the financials for WWE behind the scenes. He's talked to Vince McMahon about financial dealings for a very long time. He's very highly respected with the Fox News Group and all of that. So if anybody would have known the ins and outs and why and all that stuff, and if, most importantly, it was still happening in Saudi Arabia, it would have been him. And he tried to tell us all. He tried to let everybody know. He tried to do some mental gymnastics, and I'm going to go to some of it. to a degree, because the question is, do we watch? Will I watch, more importantly? Am I going to watch? Now I just spit everywhere. Am I going to watch Crown Jewel now? And I think the answer is probably yes. Mainly because JBL, while I did not like the way that he said things, he's not 100% wrong. You know, this is an incident. Yes, we know it's awful, it's horrible, and it needs to be condemned. Trump hasn't condemned it yet. I'm sure he's going to very soon, and it might still change things. My problem morally comes to this. I watched the Olympics in Beijing. I watched the Olympics in Russia, you know, and those were the points he was trying to make, that there are sporting events going around all over the world that there's human rights violations. There is people who are getting arrested, detained, murdered, covered up, and yet companies, major sporting events still go there, and they're not deterred from it. So why should WWE be any different? Now, the reality is we already had major issues with WWE going to Saudi Arabia because of the human rights stuff that's going on there, you know, the mistreatment of women and everything else. So there's just a lot of problems with freedom there, but yet WWE decided to roll into the territory and hope to affect change, or at least that's their public visage. Now, reality is them wallets were overflowing from the Saudi money, and that's probably where the morals stop, right there. Will the checks clear? Boom. That's it. That's it. It makes so little sense to me. But I don't know the specifics of the contract. I don't know what out clauses they may have had. I don't know so many things. It's hard to really come up with anything relevant other than will we watch or will we won't watch. There's no denying any of the allegations at this point. Now, the only thing that's left untouched with Saudi Arabia now, the officials within Saudi Arabia saying that this is a premeditated thing. I mean, this is the lawmakers. These are the people who are defending the law there, who are coming out openly and saying it was obviously premeditated. There's not a lot of questions behind that. But the big question remains, was the Crown Prince involved? Did he order this hit? Because it's what it was. It was a hit. It was a hit over somebody, a journalist who lives in the United States, who is a critic openly of Saudi Arabia and the human rights stuff. He's gone. He's out of there. But the question is, did the Crown Prince, the same guy who's trying to use this big publicity of, you know, reimagining of Saudi Arabia, the rebranding of Saudi Arabia with the more progressive Saudi Arabia, if he made this hit and it can be proven, it changes the story and the narrative once again. But it may still not keep WWE out of Saudi Arabia. It's kind of funny to me. Like, the more I think about how crazy this is, the two people we should have listened to over the last few days is JBL and Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan spilled the beans last night. Absolutely spilled the beans. I couldn't believe it. I thought there had to be a mistake, because I really felt in my heart of hearts that there's no way WWE is going. I felt that this decision has been made for weeks now, that they were moving this. I really felt that, because how could you take your event to a place where there's such a hotbed of contention? And then it hit me. It hit me when I saw everything this morning. It's not about the hotbed of contention. It's not about us. It's not even about the long-term effects that this could happen to WWE. And I think I've overstated the ramifications, I believe, because I basically sat here yesterday and told you guys, if WWE goes through with this, they're done. It's over. It may be a slow burn to the finish, but it's over. This is something that you may not be able to recover from. And you know what? I don't know. I don't know if that's true, because what they're going to do is, I think they're going to, and this is why they haven't said the name Saudi Arabia on television in almost 3 weeks. They're going to try to make this as low key as humanly possible. They're going to try and fly as much under the radar as they can, because this is about fulfilling an obligation to a contract, to a crown prince in Saudi Arabia. That show is going to be for them. I'm very confused at a lot of this, because if some of the reports are true, and both Daniel Bryan and John Cena being the more likely candidate in my eyes, stating that they're not going to go. If there was some truth to that and the reports got out, I feel that the locker room would have felt emblazoned to come out and speak against this. I'm not going either. Yeah, fuck it. I'm not going either. Why isn't anybody coming forward? The WWE cannot get rid of everybody. They just can't. They just can't, especially now that there are reports that John Cena and Daniel Bryan aren't happy with the situation. I don't think Daniel Bryan's very credible. I don't think that the story about Daniel Bryan is very credible. It seems much more likely that John Cena would speak out rather than Daniel Bryan. That's just my opinion, because I really don't know here. This is such a crazy thing. I'm not understanding why more people aren't talking out about it, because like I just said, they can't get rid of everyone. They can't do it. It's impossible. They have to put on the show somehow. So it tells me that they've already got out in front of it. I don't know if it's still going to get moved. I have no idea. I know what they said this morning in the financials. I'm surprised. And this is the most confusing thing to me. Why would you make that announcement now? I understand the quarterly review is the quarterly review, and there's no way they can get around it. You got to talk about everything that's going on within the company and the projections, the outlooks, and this is part of that because it generates so much revenue. But at the same time, I really did think that because of Evolution on Sunday, they were not going to push this news out. They were going to wait until after it, because why wouldn't you? Because now this takes all the emphasis off of Evolution, and it might even heighten some of it because of the fact that this is an all-women's event, and the week after, they can't go to an event. They can't go and perform. So why would you make these two news things merge even more than they already are? It doesn't make sense to me. Prince Bourbon chat, how would they move it on such short notice, though? Tickets won't sell at that short notice. They haven't started selling tickets to the Saudi Arabia show. And you're wrong about that. Tickets will sell very quickly no matter where they go. And they already have locations set up in England where they're already traveling during that time anyway. They have stage equipment. They have everything they need. That's not an issue. This whole report by Dave Meltzer about how WWE is frantically looking for a new location, obviously that's bullshit now. We know that's the best part of this. Dave Meltzer is absolutely full of shit, even more than he typically is. What makes me even crazier about this thing is that I just don't understand how he can be this wrong about it. Like, it made sense, to tell the story the way they did. But the reality is WWE knew this quarterly financial thing was coming up, and they'd have to talk about it. They'd have to address it. And if Meltzer would have been really good at his job, if I would have been really good at my job, I would have looked and saw where the quarterly report was going to land, and I think that would have enlightened a lot more. But the fact is, nobody did. Nobody knew it was coming. And Meltzer now looks really, really stupid because he's been talking about WWE frantically looking for a new location. WWE is played everywhere in the world. They don't need to scout. They need to make a phone call. That's it. That's all they need to do. So the whole frantic looking for a new location shit makes no sense to me. I mean, it really is insanity. And Adrian Blom is 100% correct. Money talks. I guess that is the case here, but WWE has become a moralistic company, and that's where the divide is really based at. WWE over the last 10 years has become a very moralistic company since they've gone more to the PG, so really the last 5 years, since they've gone more PG, family friendly, all that type of stuff. They get rid of people. They strike people from the record books. They don't exist. Hogan was moved out of the Hall of Fame completely, apparently, up until recently. For dropping N-words. He didn't kill anybody. But they're going to openly go into a place where they have now confirmed that they kidnapped, tortured, murdered, and dismembered a United States resident. Somebody who's living in the United States, a Washington Post journalist. I don't understand how this can continue to go forward given all that being out. It's insane to me. I'm really doing my best to make sense of this entire situation because the timing doesn't make sense. They could have easily got this moved. I'm not really concerned with that, and they still might. Tickets will sell fast. It's not a big deal. But to sit on the news until the quarterly, why not move the quarterly financials? Why not move that till after Evolution? You just completely torpedoed your own event on Sunday because now people are going to be talking backlash. We know how crowds can be. They're going to chant Saudi Arabia potentially. They're going to do a lot of things to really derail the show and take the emphasis off the women, which is part of the problem in the first place of going to Saudi Arabia, because the women couldn't perform there. I've never seen anything like this. This is a wholly unique situation. Prince Bird, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you. Have yourself a good day. It's one of those things I just have, I've really never really seen anything quite like this. This is special. This is special on a whole nother level. But now let's flip it a little bit. Let's flip this on its head and talk about the other side. Should we be this angry? Should we be this? Should we even care here? I mean, yes, murder is absolutely terrible, right? It is. There's no question in that. However, the United States and the whole world supports sporting events that go along in places where people are being tortured, fucking arrested, repressed, oppressed, you know what I mean? Detained every single fucking day. Russia, China being two prime examples. So where do we get off, in some senses, getting up on our moral high horse because WWE wants to fulfill a contractual obligation to a country? Do we have a fucking right to get up on that high pedestal unless you're one of these people, and there's not too many out there, that damn every single event that goes into a place that has questionable morals? And I would say China and Russia certainly go beyond questionable morals. You know, I mean, it's pretty fucking insane to me. So part of me wants to lead the charge and be like, fuck WWE, we're not watching this event. We're going to do our own thing during it just so we can say, fuck you guys. Maybe we shouldn't even support Evolution. Maybe this is the time to turn the whole page and go to something else. Maybe this is the day that wrestling dies. But at the same time, that seems disingenuous and kind of borderline stupid, considering that there are plenty of events that go on worldwide that operate in places that are just as bad in some instances. Maybe not as outwardly, as obvious, but Russia, that's 100% political. China, that's 100% political. It's not religious beliefs like it is in Saudi Arabia. They have religious and political situations there that most of us simply don't understand. Not even a little bit. It's much easier to understand what's going on in Russia and China, yet we turn a blind eye to it. So I'm not even saying that any of that is right or wrong, but my question now to you guys is, should we even bat an eye at this? This is goings on. It always has been. This is just the way business is conducted. You sacrifice some of your morals to make the dough. You go make them fucking chimichangas, even if little fucking poor Jose is only getting paid 3 cents to make a tortilla. You know, it's like, it's really crazy. It's a moral dilemma on a whole other scale, and I don't think it's something that's easily binary. Like wrong, right. Maybe it should be. Maybe it should be. But it's hard to get there when we're okay with so many other things that happen. So is this just a case of, and this is what it'll come down to, because if you're supporting of what WWE does, you're just a WWE cocksucker. And if you're going against that and you're saying WWE is 100% wrong and I'm not supporting them, well, then you're just a WWE hater. Because did you watch the Olympics? Did you watch the World Cup? You know what I mean? It's like, this is one of those crazy situations that we don't find ourselves in very, very often. But the hypocrisy is certainly something that we can talk about. Because honestly, at this point right now, I'll tell you, I'm probably not going to watch the event. Me personally. And maybe I should. Maybe I should. Maybe I should just go right with the flow. And maybe I still will. Who knows? My gut reaction, my initial response is, I'm not watching this. My favorite wrestler of all time, is coming out of retirement. And I may not watch it. And that's just 100% out of principle, because I can't support it. But at the same time, I watch some of the Olympics. I watch some of the World Cup. So doesn't that just make me a gigantic fucking hypocrite? Doesn't it make me a gigantic hypocrite? I think it does. I think it does. And that kind of sets wrong with me, because none of this really makes a lot of sense. I'm really struggling with this one, because now we have the Saudi Arabia government who is coming out and flat out stating, yep, it happened. Yep, premeditated. Yep. They're yupping the fact that this man, this U.S. resident, was kidnapped, tortured, murdered and dismembered. And WWE is just going to roll right in. And I think I have more of a problem with the timing than anything else because, again, they're going to be stepping on their own event by doing this. They're stepping on Evolution this week. They just stomped on it. And this damn show had enough problems as it was. So I don't know. I'm really struggling with the entire thing at this point. I want to know what you guys think. I'm going to go to the chat and look at a few things here. Let's see what people got going on. Prince, if they do it in England, I'd love to go and see it. I'm sure you would. I would as well if I was anywhere near the area. Fake ass spot. And they'll probably lose more money now because I guarantee you the stocks will drop because of this shit. It's kind of funny you say that because I was looking at some analyst reports over this. Thankfully, Don Tony had a whole lot of things on Twitter to say about this situation. Apparently, the analysts are saying that the stock might actually go up because this is a money, not moral situation. And we don't know we can't 100% predict what the moral outrage is going to be over the event. But we can predict that WWE continuing to fulfill their contractual obligations is going to include a rush of money, which is all investors care about. And if they see that, and they see that that money is not going to be wasted money or dead money or not money coming in at all, they're going to buy. And if that's the case, the stock's going to rise. And we're going to look at this even crazier because a lot of people are predicting over the next 2 days that WWE stock is once again going to surge, which is insane to me because it feels so counterproductive or counterintuitive rather. But that is the reality of the situation. WWE is not the only people guilty here of playing money over morals. The stock market and anybody who is supporting it is doing the exact same thing. You could make the argument anybody who still plans on watching it is still doing the exact same thing. It's very, very weird to me. This is one of the hardest, most brain craziness fucking topics I think I've ever talked about. In an entertainment standpoint, I should say. Because obviously there are way worse things that have happened in other situations that I've talked about in the past. But in an entertainment aspect, for a show to go on, it's not like the Chris Benoit situation where the facts weren't out and WWE tried to do the right thing by maybe they completely misread the situation. Maybe they ignored things and they did that whole Chris Benoit remembrance episode. I don't attribute it as the same thing, but that's certainly one of those talking points where it's really not even an argument or discussion anymore. We know that was 100% wrong and all of that and blah, 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 blah. It's done and over with. This is different because it's an active, ongoing story with so many different layers that is not just a WWE employee. It's that they are technically, in essence, being employed by a country to produce something that they agreed that they would, and more importantly, took a fuck ton of money saying that they would. So this really does just flip things in a whole nother light that I honestly am probably not the most well-equipped guy to talk about because I don't know. I don't know what's right. I know what's right in my heart morally. WWE shouldn't go. I know that. I feel that. But at the same time, because I'm the guy who always stands on fairness, I have to look at it from the other side of the financials and more importantly, the fact that there's already precedent set of going into other countries that have just as bad, if not worse, human rights violations, murders, cover-ups, the whole shebang-a-bang. It really is one of those weird things. It's one of the weirdest I've ever talked about because there's so many moving parts. Leaping Lizard, I guess it's the same location that Raw is going to be, the book both Sunday and Monday. Yeah, see? Prince Barab. Anyway, he had to go, Prince Barab. GunCannon, of course, Money Talks. There was an article out there that said the paychecks from this single event are the largest in company history. Yep, exactly. Just too sweet, says, hey, Dave, what's going on, man? Roger McElfresh says, the more we westernize the Middle East, the better the world will become. We need to go there. It needs to be big. I don't know if we're going to actually be able to do anything because I'm very good friends with somebody who lives in the region. I'm friends with a few people who live in the region. And I'm very good friends with someone like Tobes. Tobes, who tells me, and I believe him when he says this, because honest to God, Tobes is one of the smartest people I know. He's incredibly bright. I know that he says a lot of stupid shit sometimes, but Tobes is one of the smartest people I know. And I don't say that lightly. I really don't. And when he tells me that this is publicity and nothing more, and you can look for yourself and see it, I don't know what our westernization is going to do to that country when we have a new crown prince in Saudi Arabia who is simply leading a PR push. It's just public relations. That's all it seems to be. Yes, the women can drive, but they still have to be accompanied by a man. So they really didn't give too much up here. It really was about the photos of women driving. It was about getting that fresh coat of paint on the situation. So I'm not sure if that is a good, credible argument anymore. Maybe it was when it was just about the women thing. But when it's about an active murder situation, a murder, a kidnapping, a torture, an abduction, a murder, a dismembering, all of that, and a conspiracy that involved no less than 15 Saudi Arabian people, this is insane to me. And very easily might be linked to the Crown Prince that is putting all this PR in. No, it's not as simple as us being there as good, represent Western world shit. No. It goes beyond that now, because now this shows a regression and not a progression. Why did this guy get killed? Because he is an active dissenter against the Saudi Arabian officials. He criticized them. It's essentially the same thing as Grade A or Leafy or iNabber or any of these commentators that we like, whether it's Leon Lush or any of these guys who criticize a singular country and then they get kidnapped by that country and get murdered. It's the same thing. It's critique that is not met with anything less than abduction, torture, and murder. And that should terrify the fuck out of you, because it's a very serious thing. It is awful. It really fucking is, man. It's crazy to think that it's on that level. That critique and writing, and who the fuck even reads the Washington Post anymore? You know, it's not even like he's the biggest critic. Nobody even heard of this guy. Nobody was talking about him before they abducted. I'm sure they did in the region, obviously, but we weren't talking about him. People who just read and consume news on a daily basis, they weren't talking about him. But now it's, you know what I mean? This is just one of those crazy fucking situations because there was nothing with it other than critique. That's what we're saying is okay here. But in WWE, to an extent, is saying that. And I moralistically, I'm going to continue to have a problem with it because it makes no sense to me. It's fucking crazy. All right. Fake, if you're going to watch Saudi, just stream it on an illegal site. I guess you could do that. I guess that's an option. But, I mean, I'm not going to watch it. If I am going to watch it, I'm not going to watch it in shit quality. I still have the network. They charge me for that. Fuck that. Fake, having wrestling shows in Saudi Arabia isn't going to change them anytime soon when they recently just murdered a journalist over his fucking opinion. Exactly. And that is a big problem here. Because I was touting what Triple H said. I agree. You can't get change in a region. You can't preach change in a region if you're unwilling to go. But hell, we send people into Russia and China, and we have for fucking decades, and nothing's changed. China is still one of the smoggiest places in the whole world. It's still one of the most controlling places in the entire world. Russia is still the fucking Wild West. You know, what change has been made from our presence in these areas? What changes have been made from us allowing the World Cup to happen in Russia, to have the Olympics happen in Beijing? What socio-political changes? Poor little Ling Ming is still slaving over a fucking pair of Nikes as we speak. And if she doesn't get the stitching just right, they're going to cane her fucking hands. That's still happening. You know? And Colin Kaepernick is still the fucking face of that company. This is maddening to me. This is insane because we can't moralize too much because we're all fucking responsible here. Because we support these. If you're wearing a pair of Nikes on your feet right fucking now, you are certainly in no place to fucking say anything. Because you're, by whether or not you want to admit it, your purchase has supported those actions in the region. Just like we're going to do when we watch the Saudi Arabian thing. But the question is, how much does that matter? I don't know. It's fucking crazy. I've never seen anything like this. At least not so outwardly. We don't, I should reword a little bit. We don't talk about anything like this very often because nothing is on the same scale as a now admitted to murder. It changes the narrative completely. It really, really does. Who writing me? That's what I want to know. Hoshhog was a big critic of Randy Savage. Maybe, just maybe, the hit was personal. You never know. You know, I go and take people and I mess them up real good. Yeah, the Macho Man doesn't play. No, no, no. You dig it? You dig what the madness is saying. Man, my voice is all jacked up. I can't even do that very well. God damn it. God damn it. We are going to be taking your calls, your questions, your hopes, your dreams, your quips, your quotes, your likes, your loves, and so much more. Get into my Discord. One of my mods will put that motherfucker in there, and you can jump in the waiting call, and I will take your call. See fake ass swat in there. Stick to Stone Cold. Fuck you, C-Man. My Macho Man is great. It's just not good today. My throat is all fucked up. It's not good. I told you that if you kept sucking me the way you did, that you would take my vocal cords away from me. You suck my soul out. Fantastic dick sucker, by the way. C-Man. I mean, you really get in there, and you don't use your teeth. I appreciate it. But I told you, you're going to suck my fucking soul out of my throat away. Don't do that again. Be gentle. Gentle. Leaving Lizard, the chimichanga line just reminded me. There's a Taco Burrito in Mexico only 2 blocks away from my house. Pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Leaving Lizard, new SJW world, and most people are turning NPC girls. That's right. Fake my thoughts exactly, Dave. You can't change people's way of life if the people themselves don't want to change. That seems to be the case in Saudi Arabia. They really don't have a choice. You know, when you're living under a dictatorship, when you're living under totalitarianism, it's not like you have a choice. You're indoctrinated into this way of life, whether you want to or not, because if you criticize, if you critique, you're dead. You know, in Venezuela and in places in South America, just go to jail. You know, they just imprison you for speaking out. In Saudi Arabia, they'll fucking decapitate you. You know, they will kill your ass. They'll dismember you. In a consulate. In a fucking consulate in another country. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. This is insanity. It really is. This is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Fake, I mean the prison government don't want change. No, of course not. They want. They want to put a nice shiny coat on things so they can say, look what we're doing. Look how progressive we are. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, they want to keep their power. They want to keep their grip. That's very important to any dictator, to any leader who is operating under totalitarianism. That's just the reality. So it is one of the craziest things I've seen in a while. And I don't really have much else to say on it at the moment. Let's look at that. Let's see if there's anything that we can read into in this statement, aside from my awesomeness. Look at my face. Look how shocked I am. Oh, my God, why are you doing this, WWE? I hate you. All right. WWE has operated in the Middle East for nearly 20 years. Okay, this is a true statement. And why is it only... Okay, let's break it down line by line. WWE has operated in the Middle East for nearly 20 years. This is 100% true. Why is it only becoming... and this is why they said this, by the way. Why is everybody only giving a fuck now? It's not like Saudi Arabia or anyone else in the Middle East has not killed people up to this point. And has developed a sizable and dedicated fan base. Also true. A lot of people came out to that event. The Middle East seems to be very welcoming to the WWE in general, and you never want to turn your back on fans in a region. They don't in Russia. They don't in China. They still want to give those shows. They still go to China. They still go to places and put on shows for the fans that they have developed. Okay, also very true, and maybe a very, very important thing to say. Considering the heinous crime committed at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, the company faced a very difficult decision as it relates to its events scheduled for November 2nd in Riyadh. This is also very true. This is the line that I would have omitted. If I'm writing this press release, if I'm making this statement, this is a line that I omitted, because you can't expect anyone to give a fuck about your struggle in your decision if you make the wrong decision anyway. You know? So people aren't going to care that it was a hard decision for you. That was a mistake of a line, in my opinion. Similar, and this is also a mistake of a line, in my opinion. Similar to other U.S.-based companies who plan to continue operations in Saudi Arabia, the company has decided to uphold its contractual obligations to the General Ports Authority and stage the event. Full year 2018 guidance is predicted on the staging of Riyadh event is scheduled. See, this is a problem as well. That is a problem as well, because what WWE just did was saying, well, they're doing it too, even though there are already companies that have pulled out with very similar deals in place. At least that was the report. Nothing confirmed. But still, the last thing anybody's going to want to hear, especially, well, maybe this was the one place that they could get away with it, because it was in a financial meeting. And the financial stuff, whether you're going to invest or not, most of those people don't invest with their hearts. If you're really an investor in WWE, the only thing that you're really caring about is, are they going to meet their tolerance for what they said, what they promised you as an investor that they were going to do? You invested, especially the new investors, the people who have helped surge this stock to the point that it's to almost $100 3 weeks ago, $100 a share 3 weeks ago. The only thing they're going to care about is if those obligations that they based their economic outlook on is still going to happen. And if it is, that's enough for you. It's just it's insane. I'm not sure how much you can fucking hate on that, because we're talking about dollars and cents now. And most of those people aren't operating morally. This is Wall Street. This is people who are seeing a stock that was surging. And they based their buying preferences with the knowledge that WWE was already in a region that was troubled. What are we talking about? I'm very, very split on this. I really am. And this isn't just me being neutral and trying to be fair. I'm actually split here. Like, I really don't know what's the right thing, aside from my moral view that WWE should not be putting on that event. But I'm conflicted with that immediately because of support of other events to happen in other regions with just as many problems going on. You know, it really is one of those conundrums that I think are more common that we want to give credence to. It's more common that we really let on, but that is the reality. These things are everyday occurrences. They're everyday sporting events going on in places, and we don't bat a fucking eye. But because this one is a hot button subject at the moment, and more importantly, because of the links to the McMahons and the Trump administration, this is going to be heightened. John Oliver jumped the gun before everybody else, before he even had all the facts, and obliterated WWE. Now, with WWE saying that they're going to be going into the region on November 3rd or November 2nd, and more importantly, the fact that Saudi Arabia has now said that not only did they torture, kill, and dismember this motherfucker, but the legal authorities there in Saudi Arabia are stating that it was premeditated. It really does cause this flood that's about to overtake the WWE, potentially. Media is going to flock all over it, and a lot has to do with the connection to Trump. Because there's if Trump sneezes in the wrong direction, they make a big deal about it. Can you imagine the deal they're going to make over this? And more than Trump's already walking back his statements. By this time tomorrow, there's a very good chance that Trump actually completely condemns Saudi Arabia. Completely condemns the actions there. What will it mean for relations? Probably not much. But when he condemns it, it changes things because the State Department can get involved. This is really crazy to me. The timing of this makes no sense. Why do this 4 days before Evolution, which was already coming under high scrutiny because of the fact that the women can't go to Saudi Arabia the very next week? I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. Ancient times, Saudis got money as well. They really should have been competent enough to pull this off, or at least not fuck it up so badly. Yeah, right, exactly. It's like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get 15 guys, because that's not conspicuous at all. And we're going to center them all around the journalist, and then the journalist is just going to disappear, and no one's going to question it. Oh, by the way, we're going to do it in a consulate. Our consulate in Istanbul. That's what we're going to do. Wow. That's brazen, man. That is ballsy. That's crazy to me. Kolofsky, depression is just a facade and always will be in that part of the world. I agree with that. But at the same time, because I am not a complete pessimist, I am not a complete cynical-minded person, I have to think that with the proper long-term commitment to these principles and having good companies come in and trying to help offer that change, that eventually change will in fact be made. Will it happen overnight? No, of course not. Will it happen in 20 years? Probably not. 30, 40, 50 years. We're talking generational changes. There might be major changes down the line, and it may be attributed to association with companies that are willing to go in there and do the work. That's the altruist in me. You know, that is altruistically thinking right there. That is at its best. Putting WWE and even Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince, on the giving them the most benefit of the doubt as humanly possible. But that's hard to get to. It's really difficult to get to that point. It really is one of the craziest things I've seen in a long time. I'm trying to think of what else is nuts. Well, what else is more crazy than this? I honestly don't know. Hold on, I gotta retweet this out because I just realized the link that I gave out earlier is no good. Is no good. All right, so all that being said, I don't have a lot more to say on that topic. I do have some other stuff that I do want to talk about, and if you guys want to talk about this and anything else, feel free to get your asses in here and come talk to me right now. Well, not right now, when I'm done talking about other stuff. Live here. Here we go. Live here. That should be at least letting people know. There we go. C-Man dead on cringe. It's like you didn't know that already. Whatever. Good comeback. Just too sweet. Dave came home from work early to see your stream, and I just figured I'd tune in. I appreciate your tunage, my friend. Fake WWE putting money over morals and their own fucking performers' lives. Disgusting. I really hope WWE gets more shit for this garbage. Can't disagree with it. But at the same time, I don't know what's going to matter. Unless the wrestlers rise up in revolt and say, we're not going, which is still possible, by the way. It's still possible. Then there's really not much more to be said. So let's switch gears and go to what's in the title. Let's talk about, first, the suspensions handed down by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. They have not only upheld a suspension, a 10-day suspension to investigate everything with Conor and Khabib, but now they have extended it indefinitely until they can get all the facts and figures in the situation sorted out. Not only that, they have released some of the purse of Khabib and given him, I think, $1 million of his $3 million purse that he was supposed to get. So they're starting to give him money. That means they've probably seen some stuff that is absolving him a little. I am not optimistic for Conor here because I thought Conor was going to get off scot-free. I really did. And all the tape that I've seen, I still don't see Conor instigating any of the situation. He certainly didn't jump over the cage or anything like that. I really don't see much of a part to play in Conor outside of the fact that he did something in Brooklyn months ago. But that really speaks more to Khabib's camp than anything else because it's like in baseball. It's like in baseball when a pitcher plunks a guy that does a bat flip the year before. Oh, we've seen that. And what happened? A fight fucking broke out on a baseball diamond. One of the cleanest punches you'll ever seen in a sporting event that's not fighting related happened because of it. Who was really at fault there? Who set all the wheels in motion? Are you going to put the onus on Jose Batista, for doing what he did a year before? Or are you first going to put the onus on that pitcher who plunked him, that put him on base in the first place? Or do you put it on Jose Batista for sliding in the second into Odor the way that he did, starting a big old hoopla? It's a very convoluted thing, and that's what the Nevada State Athletic Commission has to do. They have to look at all these things and try to piece it together and figure out the best way that they can go forward. But I'll tell you, I don't agree with Conor's lawyer on this because he said he thinks this looks better for Conor. I disagree. The fact that they went ahead and they put a longer suspension on indefinitely to let them gather everything about it, and the fact that they did release some of Khabib's money does worry me a little bit for Conor. I don't think he's going to get off scot-free here. This is definitely going to have some ramifications down the line. It's another crazy story. It also kind of puts a roadblock in place for Conor to set up his next fight, which I'm telling you now, Conor wants to fight again as soon as humanly possible. He may not want to fight Khabib again very soon, but he wants another fight. I know he's saying he wants to rematch with Khabib and all of that, and that's great, but he got beaten up pretty bad, and I don't know how much more training or even getting the rust off is going to allow him to bridge the gap, because I based off what I saw in that first fight, and I'm trying to account for rust as much as I can to give Conor the benefit of the doubt that he can perform better. And you can point to previous fights to say that he learns his lessons. He comes in with different techniques. He comes in with different strategy, like he did with Diaz, losing the first fight, gassing out early because he was trying to go ham on a much bigger fighter for the entire first couple of rounds, which he fought very well in, by the way. He comes back in the second fight, fights a completely different style, has a whole other set of tactics, and he dominates. So it's what you want to believe when it comes to that. But still, they're going to want to get that fight going again because of financials and all that, and that's wonderful. But I don't know how much the Nevada State Athletic Commission is going to allow this to go down. Because what this really was, and I want to make this really clear, what the Nevada State Commission did was essentially tell them, we have unlimited power. We can suspend you indefinitely. They are showing the scope of what they can do. And honestly, it may not even be more than that. Because a lot of people took a shit on the commission. Because it's like, what are they going to do to keep them out of more situations? Well, those commissions talk to each other, and they can even find a way to make this go more than just inside of Nevada. I'm not sure how that exactly works, but I've read things that said that that could certainly be the case. Because you could simply just go to another athletic commission. But if they want to review what happened as well, based off of what their peers are doing in Nevada, they can open an investigation as well and maybe even hand down their own suspensions. And I think that's a big thing what Nevada did. Nevada said, here's our balls, here's our power, this is what we can do, now fucking deal with it. And that should be kind of scary. I think it's more of a message to UFC. Like, we ain't Brooklyn, we ain't New York, motherfucker. We're going to take a much harder stance. You know, and I think it's a much bigger message to UFC and any MMA or any boxing or any wrestling promotion that wants to come into the region, into Nevada or anywhere really that fights are being held. This is what we can do. So I think it had more to do with that than anything else. But only time is going to tell. I honestly have no idea what is going to happen with the suspensions, who's going to fight first, Khabib or McGregor. Could not tell you. Let's go to a much easier story. Much more simplistic story to figure out. Definitely not as hard. When I tell you trades are coming, you automatically think of baseball, or football, or basketball, or hockey, or any other sport where trades are just the norm. But where you don't necessarily go is MMA. Why? Because it's different commissions. What trade is going to happen? Trades don't happen very often in MMA because it's not like different sports teams playing under the same banner. I mean, I guess in some regards it is. They're all playing MMA, just like all the major league teams are playing Major League Baseball, but they're under a set of rules that indoctrinate the entire league. You know, American League, National League, they indoctrinate everybody under one blanket. You only have that in MMA, in essence, when you're talking about the state athletic commissions. You're not talking about it. There's not an MMA league, you know, and every UFC falls under that league and one falls under that league. You don't get those, you know, so it's very strange to see that. So for there to be a trade, and by the way, this is not a trade. This is an agreement. I want to make that clear as well. This is an agreement. This is not a trade. But when you have something that's being called a trade, it makes really good news. It's a great buzzword, and it certainly is interesting. And that's exactly what we're getting out of UFC and One Championship. Because what they have decided to do, what they've agreed to do in principle, it has not been 100% official yet, but two major fighters from these promotions are going to be released from their current contract. That's the trade. That's the deal. It is Demetrius Johnson, who's been one of the most impactful and dominant MMA champions we've seen in a very long time. He cleaned out his division for years, and he made people look fucking stupid. Vern, that's not what I mean. That's leagues. That's under the same umbrella. You know, that's UFC is their own people. There's no one to trade with. They're not. Those are completely different. That would be like WWE and TNA making a trade. You know, it's not the same thing. Baseball, you have an umbrella that all these teams are under unified fucking rules. Everything's the same. Everything's equal. The teams, there's luxury taxes. There's everything that combines. They're partners. UFC and Bellator, UFC and One, all the different Pride, they're not partners. They're rivals in a much different setting than you are in just a sports world where your wins and losses matter in that league. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about different promotions that do not trade with each other. And this isn't even a technical trade. They're releasing and allowing them to sign with a rival company. I don't know what the financials are going to be. I don't know if they came to an agreement financially to send money to make this more trade-like, but it's very weird. So we have Demetrius Johnson, who cleared out the division, but he just recently got his first loss. You know, got beat pretty well, I would say. Got beat pretty good. A good fight, but he lost. Does not have the UFC title anymore. Apparently he wants to go somewhere else. Still very young, still very much in the prime of his career. What is he? He's 32 years old. Prime of his career. He's got 3-4 good years, especially at his size, to be able to dominate. That's not a worry. And he has such a good track record that you're not going to worry about him. He's fantastic. So you have him being released from UFC and being to sign with one championship, who honestly I've barely even heard of. I mean, I know of them. I've watched some stuff with them, but I've not, like, that's not what you think of when you think of MMA. You're thinking of UFC, Bellator, maybe Pride, if it even still exists, and then, you know, one is not something you're going to be like, hey, one, no. That's not one of the big boys. At least not openly, you know, unless you're really, really hardcore and you're watching everything all the time. So, but they do have an amazing champion over there, a former champion, Ben Askren, who is undefeated. He has one draw, I think, or it turned into a no contest or something of the matter. But he's never lost. He's never taken a full-on L before. And he has actually been, he's 34 years old, I believe. He's been speculating for a while now that he was going to retire, that he was going to be done. But he's also talked about wanting to fight some of the guys who are in UFC, like George St. Pierre. So Ben, who was asked on Twitter, what is the likelihood, can you put a percentage on if you're going to fight in UFC? He said 98%. So the retirement talks are done. Looks like he's going to be released from his contract as part of the deal that UFC and ONE has made, and he's going to go to UFC and probably take a super fight with someone like George St. Pierre. I think this is an interesting move. I think it's really interesting. And honestly, I want to see a full-on umbrella. I want to see all these organizations fall under one unified corporation, entity, whatever you want to call it. I kind of want to see that. So more things like this could happen. And, you know, it's not even like there's not precedent with this in the past, but they don't call it trades. They call it, like in wrestling, it's, It's talent. It's talent lending. It's lending of talents. It's deals to allow. WCW did this all the time with New Japan. They did this all the time. They allowed their wrestlers to go over to Japan and perform under the NWA, under the New Japan Pro Wrestling moniker, and they had a fuck ton of Japanese wrestlers who came in and won titles and performed under the WCW moniker. You know, one of the most famous guys that I could think of who did this was the Ultimo Dragon, who had so many titles all over the world. And it's because of that borrowing. But it's also a little bit different because the wrestlers are independent contractors. Now it's not as much of the same case, especially in WWE, where guaranteed contracts and all of those things are now the norm. But historically, especially back then, they were all still independently contracted. So that changes things a little bit. But now we have stuff like the 90-day no-compete clause, which we don't seem to have in MMA as far as I know. And once you fulfill your obligation, you can basically go do what you want to do after that. So I would like to see more of this. I think that this opens up a lot of possibilities for some of the fighters that you want to see in other promotions fight some of the big fighters in the UFC. But at the same time, it also probably doesn't matter because people who leave UFC typically don't always want to come back and have a lot of venom, a lot of anger towards that company, and they just move forward with their lives and become stars somewhere else. You see this in wrestling also. You see a lot of wrestlers who leave the WWE, just throw shade, spill the tea, whatever you want to call it, absolutely take a dump on WWE, and then eventually will come back and the stance will lighten. I mean, Jesus Christ. Does everybody forget the VKM? The Mafia? The Vince Mafia? Remember who was in that? Road Dogg, the current producer of SmackDown, and Billy Gunn, who may not be with the company at the moment, but has made several returns, including winning a title, a championship title with the Road Dogg when they came back to WWE. You know, it's fucking nuts how that stuff happens all the time. So is this any different? It's pretty crazy. It's a crazy thing. It's something that I haven't seen a lot, but I'm okay with it. I'm actually really liking this, and I want to see more of it. But I'm wondering who would be willing to do it. Are they going to have to set up guidelines to where they can have full control, the company that those fighters are in, that they can sell essentially their contracts to another organization? This doesn't fall into that because these fighters are just being released. They're just being put on waivers essentially and giving the ability to go to another company. It's not exactly a this for that, although there is a handshake under the table going somewhere. You know, there is definitely something going on. There is an agreement made here, and more than likely there is financials involved that we'll never know about because they don't need to disclose it because they're not under the same organization, so they don't need to adhere to a GM. They don't need to adhere to a commissioner. There is no commissioner of MMA that all trades and all things needs to be fall under. Melker, do you think it means UFC is shutting down the flyweight division? I don't think so. It may be more of a merger, and maybe that's why Demetrius didn't want to stay in the company, but I really don't know. We've heard about more belts being added, but I don't think the WWE. I don't think the UFC is necessarily going to add more belts. I do think we can see a new weight class be created because of a combination. You know, a lot of people want to see that, but I don't know if they're going to get rid of the flyweight division altogether. Because now with Demetrius out of the way, there should be a lot more competitive fights. For some reason, Johnson was so dominant for so long, made everybody in the division look like jackasses, then he got caught. Will we see another dominant champion like that again? Likelihood is probably not. We will have people who will defend their title 3 or 4 times and such, but more than likely we're not going to see another fighter go on a 10, 11, 12 fight win streak, because that's hard to do. It doesn't happen very often, especially when now you're not fighting 3-round fights, you're fighting 5-round fights, which I hate, by the way. I hate that there are more rounds for a title fight than there are for a regular, normal, non-title fight. That's always sat wrong with me. It's like AL, NL type stuff. Like, either use the DH or don't use the fucking DH, but do it exclusively. Make a fucking choice here. So either you need to go to full-on 3 rounds all the time for every fight, or put everything to 5-round fights. Because really, when you do that, you're only going to improve the product. You know, because then there's not going to be this gas-out conspiracy where people are going in unprepared for what they want to do in the ring because they've never done a 5-round fight before. That excuse is gone. If you have fighters that train for 5 rounds all the time, always are prepared for 5 rounds, that means that they don't have to worry about having bad fights in main event matches because of non-cardio development. That excuse is gone because you've been fighting 5 rounds forever. They're probably not going to do that because there's also the safety side of it, because fighting 5 rounds against the competition that you have in MMA is quite fucking taxing. And I can't say it's the same thing in boxing because boxing is a little bit different. It's more nuanced. And while you're using your entire body to move, and you're certainly getting all kinds of gas, it's a little bit different when you're on the ground, the ability to take somebody down where you could rest, put your body on somebody else, and that type of situation. It changes things a little bit. That's why they'll never go 12 rounds in MMA. 5 is probably the max, and that might even be too much. I don't know. It's pretty crazy. Do you think that Conor McGregor's mom is gay? Sure, why not? Why not? Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I really don't have much more than that. I do got one last thing I'm going to talk about. I want to talk about Wednesday Night Wrestling because, Jesus Christ, did I ever think I'd utter those words, especially in compliment? No, but I want to talk about that. But here's what I want you guys to do for me. Get in the waiting call. I want to take your calls, your questions, your hopes, your dreams, your quips, your quotes, your likes, your loves, and so much more. Talk about everything that we had on the docket this morning with the UFC stuff, with WWE, whatever you want to talk about. And if there's just a question you want me to answer, I will also do that for you. But I need you to get in there because I'm going to get up out of here if we don't. So the final thing I'm going to talk to you guys about before we get to those callers that are hopefully going to flood into the Discord is Wednesday Night Wrestling. Wednesday nights have become the best night for wrestling, period. And even though there's a lot of issues right now with the WWE and their scope and everything, their direction going into Saudi Arabia, they are doing a lot right in the wrestling product world. Because, my God, I watched 4 hours of wrestling last night, and I fucking loved every second. Now, every week is not going to be as good as last night. In fact, after this week, they're now going to 3 hours, because this is what we've had the last few weeks. We've had 205 Live, NXT, the newly made NXT UK, and we had the Mae Young Classic, Season 2. Jesus Christ. Did every one of those shows deliver last night? Every single one. That was fantastic. We constantly complain about Monday Night Raw being 3 hours and they're not filling up enough time. They're not making things as interesting as they could. They're wasting time, blah, blah, blah. WWE fucking shot themselves in the foot last night by showing they can put on not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 hours of fucking great action. Now, granted, it's not live. It's not live. It's a little bit different when you have to do something live, and it doesn't mean that they could put on all those shows live and everything would be fucking hunky-dory. I understand that. But the format is there. They can look at those hours, those individual hours, and they can do something in Raw and in SmackDown that resembles that. Focus on a group of people for an hour at a time. Focus on one division. Focus on something just for an hour at a time. And then you don't have to worry about editing. You don't have to worry about doing all the things that you want to do. It's all good. And there is a big difference between live and taped. I get that. But they showed that they can certainly pull it off, because I was engrossed for all 4 hours last night. I had so much fun. NXT UK is becoming something I can't miss it. Already in like 2 weeks, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Fake. The difference is it was 4 different hour-long shows, not continuous 4 hours long show. Yeah, I get that, and that's why I just stated that. I understand that completely. But you can break up your show, your continuous 3-hour show. You can break it up and segment it in hour-long editions, meaning the first hour you can focus on the cruiserweights, Second hour you can focus on, mainly just tag team stuff. Let the entire hour be about tag teams. Maybe throw 2 matches in that hour, and all your backstage vignettes and everything are about setting up those matches and talking about future matches, title shots, whatever the case may be. Then in the third hour, it really does become about the main event. Everything building around the main event, and you could take 2 to 3 minutes out of your other 2 hours to put in important things that are going to help build the show the rest of the way. So while it's not the same thing in context and scope as 3 continuous hours, you can book it in a way where it resembles the exact same thing. So I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy. Makad, so how many of the 20 watchers here are not going to watch WWE anymore? Probably none, including myself. I'll probably still watch. Just being real on that. Can't help it. But there you go. That's really all I have. Do you guys agree with me? Do you like everything that's going on Wednesday night? Do you want to see more? I was very skeptical when they said they were going to have 4 shows, 4-hour-long shows on Wednesday. Now we're going to get 3-hour-long shows from this point on, because now the Mae Young Classic has come to a close. We know who officially will be in the main event, or not main event of the Mae Young Finals, but definitely one of the big matches at Evolution. Toni Storm and Io Shirai. That's going to be amazing. That's going to be great. And last night, both semifinal matches were phenomenal. They were both great. It was really great. Fake. No hour dedicated to the women. Davis sex is confirmed. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry. Well, that makes it even easier, because you can easily fill an entire hour with women's stuff. Shut up, Fake, you asshole. All right, let's take some calls. We got Fake in there. You can get in Discord. You can call up right now if you are so inclined. What's up, Fake? What do you got for us, man? You're live with Dead on Dave.
WWE is fucking trash.
Thank you. Is that it? Good job. Good job, Fake. I appreciate it. They are trash. Trash. We got a little... I don't know if that was a sound clip or if that was actually his voice, But I hear that your balls are dropping a little bit more fake. Well done. Well done. All right, that's all I've got, man. Let's see. The rest of the day is going to go as followed. I'm going to make some chicken here. I may be able to get some reefer madness going on later if I can find a way to fucking afford it. But I did find my old contact that I had here in Connecticut. I should be able to get something today, and I'm very happy about that because I am in a dick ton of pain at the moment, and I'm just fighting through because I love being here with you guys, and I love you so much. So, going to be going live to Twitch at some point, probably an hour or two from this moment. I'll be live. We're going to start with Assassin's Creed, or maybe I'll flip the script completely and we'll go to Marbles. I don't know. If you want to have an opinion of what I'm going to play, if you want to tell me what I'm going to play, you can absolutely do that. Use the game flip. You guys know how that works. Go check it out on Twitch. DeadOnDave on Twitch. Very easy to find. And that'll about do it. Except for giving my big thanks to my man, my myth, and the legend of the world, the one and only GunCannon, the guy who does all my graphics. He also went ahead and hooked me up with a beautiful little surprise this morning. Because your boy is going to have Red Dead Redemption 2, and it's because of GunCannon. I want to give him credit for that. I love him to death. All right. You guys have yourselves a fantastic day, and we will see you a little bit later over on the Twitches. Keep it copious, folks, and remember, as always, if you do not have talent, have those talented friends like these wonderful people who continue to support me on Patreon. Make sure you do that as well. See you guys later. Peace out.